Now welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Force Lightning Takes. And let's get right to the news.
Okay, so I found a very interesting quote that I want to kind of talk about today. And first off, I want to preface this by saying I don't fault the actress for saying what she did.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Alright, so this is coming from Emily Watson. She's going to be she's playing one of the Harkonnen in the upcoming Dune Prophecy HBO series, which I'm very looking forward to.
Yeah, big
Very
Dune
looking
fan.
forward to.
And I'm a Dune fan who doesn't know anything about Dune.
I'm hoping, well, as much as you know how I feel about the new Dune. Dune Part 2.
You
in
didn't
particular.
like it. Well,
because it strayed really far from the book, and it kind of was changing a little too much, and I don't know how much of that you can walk back.
Okay, yeah. I didn't. Again, I've never read the books, so I don't know much. I've seen the old series,
well, and
the
they
sci-fi
time
series.
jumped everything. I feel like they shouldn't have, because having that time in the book gave you a much more of a deeper understanding on how long did it take Paul to kind of come to be leader of the Fremen. How long did it take him to actually put his jihad together and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, they're like, it happened overnight. It's done. Done deal. We're good.
Sure. I don't know about quite overnight, but
Well, it's like years in the book.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, you've told me.
Okay.
I just, like I said, never read the books. I enjoyed both the films. That's where I'm at. I'm excited for the series.
All right, so Emily Watson, obviously she's out doing the press. Dune Prophecy comes to us in November this year. They asked her about her experience working on the show. She said it was very exciting, but also very great to go into that world with the security of knowing I've got the skill set to make everything feel real. It's a very interesting palette, because it's not childish. It's not like Star Wars. It has a moral complexity, which is interesting. And like I said, I don't entirely fault the actress for this quote.
No. I fault probably Disney for destroying the moral fabric of Star Wars, in a manner of speaking. Because I don't think people look at Star Wars anymore as having any kind of a lesson to it.
Well, to say it's not childish, it's not like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So now we've got this new implication that Star Wars is childish.
It's not a new implication. Star Wars is childish to a degree, but it has meaning undertone. You know, the undertones have meaning. It's not just like, oh, it's a stupid lightsaber fight and space battles. No, there's meaning underneath it. And I think that's what it has eroded away with Star Wars in the Disney era, pretty much, with the sequels, where there really wasn't like an underlying theme or message you were really supposed to take away. It just kind of like, here's some films, you know, buy the merch. And I mean, I get why she would say that, because I don't necessarily disagree that it has kind of become this frivolous, kind of empty, you know, it's empty calories nowadays.
It just makes me sad, because Star Wars used to be the thing filmmakers aspired to be. They all wanted to be the next Star Wars.
Now it's kind of a joke.
Now it's a joke. Now it's, I don't want to be childish, I don't want to be Star Wars, because Star Wars is now just that everyday schlop from the cafeteria. It's not having that gourmet meal it used to be.
That's a good way to put it. It has become just manufactured, you know, assembly line stuff.
Right. They've taken this moral complexity, which she apparently finds very interesting. They've taken it out of Star Wars, and they're like, here, we're going to tell you what to think, and that's just it.
Yeah, basically. That's the problem with a lot of things. They don't make you think, they tell you how to think.
Right. Nowadays, the audience, I think, craves things like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones changed things for people.
No, absolutely.
It showed you that you can have this show that can be very popular, very appealing to a broad range of people, and it can be very complex with deep characters.
Yeah, I think that and like Breaking Bad, and there are some other shows that really just
Downton
kind of...
Abbey.
Well,
I like to toot that horn.
Downton Abbey is a great character-driven show. Probably one of the best I have seen it. It's very, very well written for, you know, just pure character-driven.
Pure character, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great show, but I mean, it doesn't have the oomph that something like a Game of Thrones has, if you will.
True. I mean, obviously this doesn't pertain to Andor, which I think has that intensity, that complexity.
And there are lessons under there where you can go, where you stop and you ask yourself, how far would you have to go to beat the Empire?
Right, the debate for did Cinta do it is still an ongoing debate.
Well, sure.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because we're questioning the deep-seated morals and values of the character versus kind of a in this situation would you do it? What do you think? Imposing your own morals into the situation, your own beliefs. It made for a really great discussion.
Well, the whole thing does, because, again, it asks that question, how do you defeat evil?
If you're living in the world of the gray here, which is where Andor lives, these are regular people who have to make decisions that are beyond the scope of anything that you have to usually make.
Well, very few people are going to have to make decisions like that in their life about, do I kill a family to preserve our
to protect
identity?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole show had interesting quarrels and questions like this. With
even
Mon Mothma sacrificing like her family, her ties to her family for a rebellion that she believes in.
Yeah. Well, George did a great job of putting all these questions into his movies. Like, even, I know a lot of people talk smack about the prequels, whatever you want to call it, but there are tons of difficult questions in there.
Yeah.
Just look at Anakin's final choice. Like, do you save the most evil man in the galaxy for a chance to save your wife?
Yeah, and now Star Wars,
I think a lot of people do.
Has changed.
It doesn't have those questions.
Here's Kenobi. We put in flashy characters and flashy lightsabers. We didn't care about the story as much, as long as it looked great for the mass appeal or whatever.
Vader versus Kenobi.
Yeah.
And then you have, here's the problem with that. It does try to put this tough question into the very end in the final fight where Kenobi lets him live, but then you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why would you let the guy who is a mass murderer that you know he's going to do worse. You know he's going to keep doing horrible things. Why would you let him live? That's not being a Jedi. That's making the hard, doing what you must be done. The things that they do nowadays in Star Wars, you're like, well, wait a second. That's our hero of the story making the way wrong choice at the end. Likely because they have a fundamental misunderstanding of how Star Wars works.
Right. And then Ahsoka, they didn't really give us any great moral complexity
either. Sure they did, but they ignored it.
They ignored it, or they just had him barrel through with making the wrong decisions.
We had, Sabine hand over the map, which was a great moment, because it's like, well, yeah, I could certainly see her do that to find Ezra. Yeah. But then later on, it's like, Ahsoka's like, well, I got to accept that you're going to do you. Because that's what my master used to do. My master used to accept me as me, so I'm going to do the same.
But you still have to know the greater good.
Yeah, you still... Exactly.
Ahsoka wouldn't have given up the map.
No, because that's not the right thing to do.
She knew that Ezra would understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Ezra also would know that.
And then they never have that conversation.
No, they ducked around the moral complex.
Exactly. Yeah, they just totally if we just ignore it, and we don't have to deal with it because it's hard.
Right. So I could see more characters gravitating towards roles and projects where they feel like they're escaping the quote-unquote childish nature of Star Wars, because they want to go after something that's morally complex. They want to be the next Game of Thrones. They want to be something that makes people think, that's going to leave lasting impressions on the audience in the characters that we love.
Yeah, that's what Star Wars doesn't do anymore. It doesn't really hit you, in that part where you're like, well, again, other than Andor, and some other exceptions perhaps too, but it doesn't really make you have to ask the hard questions of yourself. Like, what would you do in that situation? Instead of just kind of skirts around them, and it's just a fun lightsaber fight. Cool.
Yeah. When you have to sit there and tell us how your lightsaber fights are going to rival episode 1.
I don't care.
No, I want to know what is your story going to
rival episode 1. But no, that's the thing. I've said it, a million times on my channel. Like, lightsaber fights, they should be good. Like, what do you mean you got good lightsaber? Of course, you're Star Wars.
That's common. Now tell me about your deep characters, your thoughts for how the galaxy is running and how these individual people are going to handle this.
Yeah, of course you have good lightsaber fights and special effects. But what is your story? Is your story good? Like
the Acolyte. Maeve and Osha flip-flopping from light to dark with cool. Real moral understanding as to why they're doing it.
Because this is a cool story about the dark side.
Well, I did see that guy's junk, so I guess I'm a Darksider now.
Well,
Yeah, and we just avoid having any conversation that's hard. We just skip.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm Osha, and I've cherished my relationship with Master Soul my entire life, but I'm not going to give him 2 seconds to explain anything to me. I'm going to kill him.
No, because I'm
bad now.
Because I corrupted a Kyber crystal, so...
I don't even want to get started on corrupting the Kyber crystal. That looked... Like, I liked when they showed it bleed the crystal itself.
Sure.
But then lighting it up and having it change didn't make any sense, because that's not how the light would have worked.
No, it would have already been red.
Would have already been red. and the whole thing should almost change as an instant, or it should change from the core, the center outward, not from the bottom up.
They were just trying to do something visually appealing. And
well, visually they made some mistakes.
No, I agree. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying what they were thinking.
Right. So I'm just saying Star Wars needs to get its act together, because I need actors who want to do serious roles, serious parts, to want to do Star Wars.
Yeah, but it like you said it. I mean, it's flipped. Star Wars used to be that premier thing everybody wanted to do, be it a writer, director, actors. It's Star Wars. It's the top franchise. Now it's like, I don't know if I really want to do that kid franchise where they don't really have any substance to their stories.
And I love Favreau and Filoni, but Filoni, coming from the background of animation, going to live action is actually going to be extremely difficult for him, for the fact that when you write for animation, you typically are writing for a younger audience, which means these moral, complex conversations aren't really front and center all the time.
Well, not as pronounced,
They're not as pronounced, so you get away with skirting around a conversation or having a character forgive another one with a little less explanation.
You want kids obviously asking those questions, but sometimes you don't need them quite that deep or disturbing sometimes, No, Ahsoka, you're right, Ahsoka was fluff.
It would have been better as animation because it was written.
Yeah, because you would expect I mean, you just naturally, I think most people just expect animation to be a little lighter, a little easier on the palate, and
that's what it was.
Yeah, and it was, but it was in live action.
All right, let's kind of move on to what we've got coming up this week. No, it's nothing really Star Wars.
No.
On Wednesday the 18th, Agatha All Along will be premiering with 2 episodes. It's going to be at that evening time, the 8 p.m., and we will be doing a review.
Oh, we've been so far behind on reviews and other things, but that's
because you were not well, and then I got COVID. I'm still...
And then
if I sound congested, it's because I am.
Me too.
I'm cutting out coughing and sneezing breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I proclaimed that I had never caught it, and this time I caught it, and it just...
That's your fault for being all...
Whew, it wiped me out.
All right, then on Thursday the 18th, The Rings of Power will be continuing on with Episode 6, which I'd like to say we will review this one.
I'd like to say.
We also will have the Episode 1 premiere of Penguin.
Wow, that's coming too, huh?
Yeah, well, it'll be moving to Sundays. It's kind of a weird thing because it's premiering this Thursday night on HBO, and then it will not be coming back until the 29th, which is a Sunday.
Strange.
So you got like a week and a couple of days before you'll get another episode of Penguin. That's what's coming.
They want you to digest that first one real good.
Real good. Well, they're giving it like they're going to be premiering it on the channel over and over throughout the week so that people can watch it before they move forward, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing a Thursday premiere when they should have just done it on a Sunday. Whatever.
All right. Well, I think that is going to be all we got for this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below. Tell us what you think of any and all of today's news, and let's talk some Star Wars. And so until next time, thanks for watching.